But the big reason is what we really know here is that the Shedeur Sanders story has just taken over the sport right now. That's the biggest reason. And it's a big reason because, yes, I mean, the public was led and maybe misled by people that shouldn't have been making comments back in the college football season or before that Shedeur Sanders was the number 1 pick in the draft. And now you have people who are like kind of just getting back into like football in the draft. And they're like, wait, Shedeur Sanders isn't the number 1 pick. This is crazy. What's going on? And there's an uproar about it. And then, so there's a little bit of the truth and what's been said, and that's all kind of meeting here right now. And that's why we're going to be talking about Shedeur Sanders tomorrow morning. And we're going to be sitting there waiting to see where he goes all night tonight because of what everybody was led to believe about the prospect of Shedeur Sanders and what he really is.
And we're going to talk about Shedeur Sanders later, but I'm trying to understand why there's been this rush of criticism of him under the cloak of anonymity. We talked about for a while yesterday the item at NFL.com that gave a platform to an anonymous assistant coach to bash Shedeur Sanders, and it actually came up during the NFL media morning show, Good Morning Football. Kyle Brandt went off while Tom Pelissero was on the air. It was slightly awkward. Brandt did his best to walk the tightrope between bashing the source and not bashing his colleague who publicized the source's comments, but still, he should have gone the rest of the way. Someone should have gone the rest of the way and said, we should not. Hopefully, internally, they've had this debate. We should not have put that quote out there without a name on it. I wonder whether some of it is just sparked by people in the NFL who are sick of hearing about Shedeur Sanders. That it's been Shedeur Sanders this, Shedeur Sanders that.
Well,
Shedeur,
I'm sure.
Like Marsha. Yeah. Shedeur.
Right.
And they're just venting. And when you give someone anonymity, they're more likely to vent.
Well, yeah, I agreed there. And I do agree with what you're saying. That, yes, I think that the attention he's gotten has rubbed some people the wrong way, right? And again, that shouldn't be blamed on Shedeur Sanders. That should be blamed on the people that constantly put attention on him. So that's not fair to him at all. The other thing is because...
As we're putting more attention on him.
Right, as we're doing it.
Because it's such an uncertainty, and it's a compelling story, so it naturally draws attention.
Exactly. That's where I'm getting to. So what happens is the media, the public's been led to believe he's awesome. He's going in the top 3 picks. That's all that's been said for 4 or 5 months now. That's what's happening. So now there's an uproar. And what's happened is even people like Tom Pelissero and other people in the NFL, whatever, they're going like, wait, what happened? Right? So they're digging in. They're calling people, asking, and they're starting to hear what teams are really thinking. And as I said to you yesterday, I think a lot of teams were scared to talk about Deion. They didn't want to talk about Shedeur. They didn't want to say anything negative. I think a lot of people have been scared to do that. That would be my take a little bit. And then there's the aspect of just, let everybody think he's great. Just, sure. So somebody wastes their pick on him like you always talk about. And I think between those two things, it's led to insiders and people to add more attention to it going, wait, why is Shedeur falling or whatever? And the teams are like, listen, this is what's going on. And we can get into whether that's proper, and I know we will. But, I just feel like the truth is coming out a little bit more, and it's surprising the public in a big way.
And it is so weird still that the Steelers are the favorites to take him. As of yesterday, I think the odds may be off the board. I don't know when they take him down in advance of the draft. But the Steelers were the favorites, and then the Browns and the Giants were second and third. Now that may mean take him in round 2 or trade back into round 1, but they are holding the number 2 and number 3 overall pick respectively. And I still believe at the end of the day, an owner somewhere somehow is going to get involved and make this pick happen, just like Jimmy Haslam did with the Browns and Johnny Manziel in 2014, and just like Jerry Jones wanted. They basically had to hide the phone from Jerry Jones to keep him from calling in the order for the code red to draft Johnny Manziel when they were on the clock.
Right.
And I mean, this is, and look, it's good for business because the Shedeur Sanders destination is going to loom over the night.
Yeah.
And I know from our traffic real-time draft night 11 years ago when Manziel was sliding, it was through the roof.
Right.
Because everybody wanted to see when's Manziel going to get drafted. And tonight everybody's going to want to know when Shedeur Sanders is going to get drafted. And for our selfish motivation, it's better that he makes it like until pick 32 and somebody trades back in and takes him at 32.
But the Manziel thing is another great example, right? The public was led this one thing, and the NFL and a lot of the teams in the league had third-round grades on Johnny Manziel. Most of the damn team organization in Cleveland did, to your point. But Jimmy Haslam, Ray Farmer, the GM at the time, they came in and said, nope, we're going to take him here. And so, yes, it speaks to sometimes the disconnect between the league and what they see and what media and all of us talk about and all the highlight shows and all of that. And, Johnny Manziel was saved by an owner. Will Shedeur be saved by an owner tonight? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. But I think it's very real that he ends up in the second round, too.
And there's that element that no one is going to admit. If there's an owner out there that is thinking, I'd like to hire Dion next year or the year after, is the owner going to make the power play? It's my team.
Yeah.
I want Shedeur.
Right.
And I don't think that's been discussed enough. You know, it started at the Combine when all of a sudden the anonymous scouts were saying that Shedeur Sanders is brash and arrogant. Two qualities you never want in a quarterback, right, of an NFL team. You don't want anybody who's brash leading the charge on the field. That was kind of ridiculous. And we said at the time, you got coaches out there who are concerned that if you draft Shedeur Sanders, you might be signing your own pink slip. Because Dion told us. We asked him. We were sitting there. I said, under what circumstances would you coach in the NFL? I would only coach in the NFL to coach my son. Right. And he wasn't talking about Shiloh. He's talking about Shedeur. And so that hovers over all of this. And that could explain this kind of collective negativity at Shedeur, because it's like there's strength in numbers here. Let's lock arms like Red Rover. We don't want Shedeur because having Shedeur on our team means potentially getting fired as soon as this year, and in comes Dion. How is that not a real factor for people who have jobs that want to keep those jobs?
But no, I hear you there. I think it's one of those that's, somewhere in their mind, in their deep mind, there is probably that. There is. But also, I think there is the other side of it, too. That the league does not look at him and go, he's a top 10 pick or he's a special entity that way. They don't. And I think that's what we're just finally hearing. And honestly, what stinks is because I think people were so scared to talk about him and what their grades were and what they were. Now what stinks is it shifts to the player, and he's being put in a spot here totally at the end of going, wait, what the hell happened here? What's going on? And I just think it's gotten to a point with all teams where, they're talking to somebody or whatever, and they're just, hey, what's going on with Shedeur? And they're going, listen, we don't have a great grade on Shedeur, or we have Tyler Shook above him, or we have Jackson Dart, or we have the same one. And all of that has led to this all of a sudden, oh my gosh, what the hell's going on here?
Why? Okay, I'm going somewhere with this. I want your impression.
Right.
Why were people afraid to tell the truth about Shedeur?
I just think people are scared of the backlash of what you could get, and you see it from I think people on social media more than anything, probably. And yes, just some haters on TV that will go and why are you getting on Shedeur? There's a Dion backing. I think people are scared of that. I think people are scared of the power of Dion, even in the league. Yes, I do. I think it was a real thing of he's a big time power player, to your point, and nobody wants word getting back to Dion or anything like that, because he might be my boss one day, and I don't want him to hear that Shedeur wasn't very high on my grades or my list as far as quarterbacks. So I think there was a big part of that, and you couple that with, hey, just let the public and some of these people think what they want, so they waste a pick on Shedeur. I think that's why we're at this point we're at right now.
I think it would have been more credible. The criticism of him would have been more credible if it would have been substantive from the get-go.
It's just where
exactly. He's brash and arrogant.
That's what messed it up, right? Brash and arrogant. He thinks he's entitled, whatever. All that crap. Yeah, that's the crap that discredits the real stuff. That's what I don't like, right? Okay, sure. Hey, he didn't come off great in meetings. Sure. Okay, fine. Say that. Whoop-de-doo. We see that all the time, right? But no, start with more what's on the football field. That's where you're right. It went wrong there, and that's where it's become now like, a battle of other things, right? And that's where it gets crazy on social media with you see people sticking up for him and not sticking up for him and all that. And then it also, it just feels like it takes a wrong turn and it doesn't stay to the sport and what we saw on the football field.
In 2024, there were 6 quarterbacks taken in the first 12 picks, and there's a chance all 6 of them are going to pan out. And I've said a couple of times in the past, well, statistically, it would suggest J.J. McCarthy is going to be the bust. And, of course, then one of the aggregation bot accounts, Florio, says J.J. McCarthy is going to be a bust. No. We've never gone 6 for 6. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.